Reginald, this series is called Reggiecoin, wherein I go through the biggest cryptos and read their white papers. Why do I read white papers? Because my central thesis to getting rich from crypto requires that you can spot a good crypto from a bad crypto. How does one go about spotting a good crypto from a bad crypto? Easy. You read a lot of white papers. Why? Because once you start to read white papers, after you've read a number of them, you'll be more equipped to make a wise decision when that new crypto comes out and there's a white paper. You'll be able to read it and instantly tell, hey, this is something that I should invest in. Or, maybe this is something that needs more work. So if people are talking to you about crypto and they're not talking about white papers, I would take it with a grain of salt, or you got to be talking about the technology. What is it planned to do in terms of function? If it's just doing the same stuff that everything else is doing, then why not support everything else, right? So my central thesis is you got to read these white papers to differentiate what's good versus what's bad. So today we have a very interesting white paper we're going to be breaking down. This is Solana. I don't know that much about Solana, to be honest. So, yeah, we're going to be learning together. So, um, yeah, let's get into it. So, abstract. This paper proposes a new blockchain architecture based on proof of history, a proof for verifying order and passage of time between events. POH is used to encode trustless passage of time into a ledger and append-only data structure. When used alongside a consensus algorithm such as proof of work or proof of stake, POH can reduce messaging overhead in a Byzantine fault-tolerant replicated state machine, resulting in sub-second finality times. I saw a typo in the white paper. This paper also proposes two algorithms that leverage the time-keeping properties of the POH ledger. A POS algorithm that can recover from partitions of any size in an efficient streaming proof of replication. The combination of POREP and POH provides a defense against forgery of the ledger with respect to time and storage. The protocol is analyzed on a 1 gigabytes per second network, and this paper shows that throughout the throughput up to 710K transactions per second is possible with today's hardware. Um, okay, so their main thing that they're introducing a couple of things. So there's the proof of history, POH. It's interesting. I've heard of obviously proof of work, heard of proof of stake, proof of history. Sounds very novel to me. As I mentioned, I'm not that familiar with Solana. I know people that lost a lot of money when Solana. I think there was a big hack or something. And then with the proof of replication. So yeah, let's get into the introduction. So this section introduces Solana as a high-performance blockchain designed to support decentralized applications and crypto projects. It emphasizes the need for scalability and speed in blockchain technology. So when it says supporting decentralized applications and crypto projects, my immediate thought is, okay, so this is not setting itself to be necessarily a competitor to Bitcoin, is more so a competitor to Ether, right? So they're trying to say that, they could do what Ether does, cheaper, better, more sustainably, and then they say scalability, which like everybody always says they work on scalability, but do they really? Or time really tells. But I haven't heard that many issues about Solana's scalability issues. So I see there's a couple chats. So let's look. Let's see what are we saying. Okay. So there's just some silly fellows in the chat saying some silly things. So I'm not gonna mind them. Introduction. Uh, so they talk about blockchain. They talk about the node. Um, okay, so this is interesting a little bit. So in the introduction, blockchain is an implementation of a fault-tolerant replicated state machine. Current publicly available blockchains do not rely on time or make a weak assumption about the participant's ability to keep time. Each node in the network usually relies on their own local clock without knowledge of any other participant clocks in the network. This lack of a trusted source of time means that when a message timestamp is used to accept or reject a message, there's no guarantee that every other participant in the network will make the same exact choice. The POH presented here is designed to create a ledger with verifiable passes of time, i.e., duration between events and message ordering. It is anticipated that every node in the network will be able to rely on the recorded passage of time in the ledger without trust. Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, I never of all the criticisms about like Bitcoin, for example, I'm not familiar with somebody saying that, hey, the blockchain doesn't care about time. That's kind of funny to me. Okay, so then there's the outline, the network design, proof of history. Let's get into the POH. So, proof of history is a sequence of computation that can provide a way to cryptographically verify passage of time between two events. It uses a cryptographically secure function written so that output cannot be predicted from the input and must be completely executed to generate that output. The function is run in a sequence on a single core. It prevents output as the current input, periodically recording the current output and how many times it's been called. The output can then be recomputed and verified by external computers in parallel by checking each sequence segment on a separate core. Dang, this is taking me back to reading the Ethereum white paper. This is some complicated stuff, but I actually, as frustrated as I was going through the Ether white paper, I've learned to really appreciate this. Um, when I got through the BNB white paper, I was kind of disappointed with, how little they talked about. Data can be timestamped into the sequence by appending the data or a hash of some data into the state of the function. The recording of the state, index, and data as it was appended into the sequence provides a timestamp that can guarantee the data was created sometime before the next hash was generated in the sequence. This design also supports horizontal scaling as multiple generators can synchronize amongst each other by mixing their state into each other's sequences. Horizontal scaling is discussed in depth in section 4.4. So then they talk about the input and the output hash. I don't know if that's helping you as an investor. But, all important things to know at some point. So then they talk about the timestamps. Let's see what's going on with the chat. Still talking that BS. Okay. This architecture is very detailed. And verification. I gotta just get past this. Okay. So, let's see. Horizontal scaling. It is possible to synchronize multiple proof of history generators by mixing the sequence state from each generator to each other generator, and thus achieve horizontal scaling of the proof of history generator. This scaling is done without sharding. The output of both generators is necessary to reconstruct the full order of events in the system. So it sounds like, they're not using, like they found something that's not like a Merkle tree or I forgot the thing that Ether says it does. Turing complete thing. So I think so they're doing horizontal scaling. I think that's what I'm talking about, but this is over my head. For example, I'll just go into this a little bit, right? But yeah, this is what I'm about to read is totally over my head, right? So, given generators A and B, A receives data packet from B, which contains the last state from generator B, and the last state generator B observed from generator A. The next state hash in generator A then depends on the state from generator B, so we can derive that hash 1B happened sometime before hash 3A. Of course, this property can be transitive. So if three generators are synchronized through a single common generator, A to B to C, we can trace the dependency between A and C even though they are not synchronized directly. Blah, blah, blah. The synchronization is transitive. A to B to C, there is a provable order of events between A and C through B. Scaling in this way comes at the cost of availability. 10 times 1 gigabytes per second connections with availability 0.999 would have the 0.999 to the 10th power equals 0.99 availability. If anybody understands this, please comment. Please leave a comment and explain to me the A to B to C scaling coming at the cost of availability, please. But look, we're in here. We're looking at the white papers. There's nothing better than this if you're talking about investing in crypto. So this is what we're doing, you know. Consistency, malicious, PLH when the sequence is published. Just getting more into the nitty gritty. Overhead, attacks. Okay, so attacks is interesting because I believe Solana was hacked at some point, right? Generating a reverse order would require an attacker to start the malicious sequence after the second event. This delay should allow any non-malicious peer-to-peer nodes to communicate about the original order. Since this is proof of time, if somebody hacks it, does that mean they need a time machine? Thanks. I'm working on my crypto stand up. All right, speed. Having multiple generators may make the deployment more resistant to attacks. One generator could be high bandwidth and receive many events to the mix into its sequence. Another generator could be high speed, low bandwidth that periodically mixes with high bandwidth generator. The high speed sequence would create a secondary sequence of data that an attacker would have to reverse. Long range attacks. No, it's not talking about a sniper or bow and arrow. There's a long range attacks on Solana. Or not a lance. Long range attacks involve acquiring old discarded client private keys and generating a falsified ledger. Proof of history provides some protection against long range attacks. A malicious user that gains access to old private keys would have to recreate a historical record that takes as much time as the original one they're trying to forge. This would require access to a faster processor than the network is currently using. Otherwise, the attacker would never catch up in history length. Additionally, a single source of time allows for construction of a simpler proof of replication. Since the network is designed so that all participants in the network will rely on a single historical record of events. POREP and POH together should provide defense of both space and time against a forged ledger. Solana is crazy. Peakovator asks, am I wearing a rosary? No, this is a Buddha with a sword. So there's a sort of tourist attraction temple in Hong Kong called Big Buddha. And when you go to Big Buddha, there's like a little sort of townish village around there, and then they have temples with little shops. And So yeah, some of the shops they have like little. I think they're really meant to be hung up in a car, like on the window or the rear mirror. You hang them up there, but yeah, I wear mine as a necklace, and I don't think this is actually. So there's like 12, and it's sort of like a Chinese horoscope thing where based on the year you were born and the Chinese time, that tells you which Buddha is yours. But I did not go by that because I just saw this one Buddha with the sword, and I was like, yo, that's fire. I need the sword Buddha. So no, this isn't a rosary, although it definitely looks like a rosary, right? So yeah, we just talked about long range attacks. Now we're talking about proof of stake, consensus. Come on, page 14 of 32. Let me look back at the breakdown. Okay. So just in case I didn't really define POH, proof of history, POH is introduced as a core innovation that timestamps transactions, allowing nodes to agree on the order of events without extensive communication. This mechanism drastically improves the efficiency of the network. So they say. Okay, so proof of stake consensus. They get into that. Terminology, bond, slashing, supermajority, bonding, voting, unbonding, elections, election triggers, runtime exceptions. I'm just saying words at you. They have something called cap systems. Oh man, this is in the weeds. Okay, so recovery. In the system we propose, the ledger can be fully recovered from any failure. That means anyone in the world can pick any random spot on the ledger and create a valid fork by appending newly generated hashes and transactions. If all the verifiers are missing from this fork, it would take a very, very long time for any additional bonds to become valid and for this branch to achieve two-thirds of supermajority consensus. So full recovery with zero available validators will require a very large amount of hashes to be appended to the ledger. And only after all unavailable validators have been unstaked will any new bonds be able to validate the ledger. Finality. POH allows verifiers of the network to observe what happened in the past with some degree of certainty of the time of those events. As the POH generator is producing a stream of messages, all the verifiers are required to submit their signatures of the state within 500 milliseconds. This number can be reduced further depending on network conditions. Since each verification is entered into the stream, everyone in the network can validate that every verifier submitted their votes within the required timeout without actually observing the voting directly. Attacks. Tragedy of commons. Okay, I've heard about this in terms of philosophy, so let's see how it connects to the Solana white paper. Tragedy of commons. The POS verifier simply confirmed the state hash generated by the POH generator. There's an economic incentive for them to not do work and simply approve every generated state hash. To avoid this condition, the POH generator should inject an invalid hash at a random interval. Any voters for this hash should be slashed. When the hash is generated, the network should immediately promote the secondary elected POH generator. Each verifier is required to respond within a small timeout, 500 milliseconds for example. The timeout should be set to low enough that a malicious verifier has a low probability of observing another verifier's vote and getting their votes into the stream fast enough. It sounds very interesting. It's over my head, but still kind of cool. Collusion with the POH generator. A verifier that is colliding with the POH generator would know in advance when the invalid hash is going to be produced and not vote for it. This scenario is really no different than the POH identity having larger verifier state. The POH generator still has to do all the work to produce the state hash. Censorship. Censorship or denial of service can happen when one-third of the bondholders refuse to validate any sequence with new bonds. The protocol can defend against this form of attack by dynamically adjusting how fast bonds become stale. In the event of a denial of service, the larger partition will be designed to fork and censor the Byzantine bond holders. The larger network will recover as the Byzantine bonds become stale with time. I totally skipped over where stale, I don't even know what stale means in this context, right? The smaller Byzantine partition would not be able to move forward with for a longer period of time. We'll talk about long range attacks again, ASIC attacks, streaming proof of replication. There we go. Streaming proof of replication. Filecoin proposed a version of proof of replication. The goal of this version is to half-fast the streaming verifications of proof of replication, which are enabled by keeping track of time and proof of history generated sequence. Replication is not used as a consensus algorithm, but is a useful tool to account for the cost of storing the blockchain history or a state at high availability. Algorithm. It's a little over my head. There's some diagrams, verification, key rotation, hash selection, proof validation. So this is back to what's interesting to me, right? So attacks. Spam. A malicious user could create many replicator identities and spam the network with bad proofs. To facilitate faster verification, nodes are required to provide the encrypted data in the entire Merkle tree to the rest of the network when they request verification. Okay, so there's still Merkle trees here. I gotta do a whole course on what the hell is a Merkle tree. If somebody's watching this and you know what a Merkle tree is and you can explain a Merkle tree simply, please put it in the comments. Help a brother out. The proof of replication that is designed in this paper allows for cheap verification of any additional proofs as they take no additional space, but each identity will consume 1 core of encryption time. The replication target should be set to a maximum size of readily available cores. Modern GPUs ship with 3,500 plus cores. Partial erasure. A replicator node could not attempt to partially erase some of the data to avoid storing the entire state. I think I read that wrong. A number of proofs and the randomness of the seed should make this attack difficult. Blah, blah, blah. Collusion with the proof of history generator. The signed hash is expected to seed the sample. If a replicator could select a specific hash in advance, then the replicator could erase all bytes that are not going to be sampled. Yada yada, denial of service. The cost of adding an additional replicator identity is expected to be equal to the cost of storage. The cost of adding an extra computational capacity to verify all the replicator identities is expected to be equal to the cost of a CPU or GPU core per replication identity. Replication keeps kicking my ass. This creates an opportunity for denial of service attack on the network by creating a large number of valid replicator identities. To limit this attack, the consensus protocol chosen for the network can select a replication target and award the replication proofs that meet the desired characteristics like availability on the network, bandwidth, geolocation, etc. Yeah, they're wilding in the chat. What is going on? this is this is crazy. Okay, so this has nothing to do with crypto, but you guys got me interesting. Okay, so somebody asked if I think Diddy's a good guy. Somebody said to free him. And then somebody named Hunter Biden jumped in. And then somebody signed in with an account called Sean Diddy Combs and said, somebody said my name. That's crazy. You guys are trolling in here. Why? I'm just a humble guy trying to talk to you about crypto. Okay. YouTube is so silly. YouTube is so silly. Okay, system architecture. Section 7. So we're on page 26 of 32. Components. The leader is an elected proof of history generator. It consumes arbitrary user transactions and outputs of a proof of history sequence of all the transactions that guarantees a unique global order in the system. After each batch of transactions, the ledger outputs a signature of the state that is the result of running the transactions in that order. This signature is signed with the identity of the leader. What are we talking about? State, verify state replication, validator, network limits. All right, I'm getting out of section 7. Okay, so actually, let's talk about 7.5. High performance smart contracts. So this is back to what I said that they're competing with Ether, right? So yeah, one of the things that Ether introduced was smart contracts. So now we're going to be able to compare and contrast, depending on how much we understand of this, right? But yeah, this is a contrast with Ether. So smart contracts are a generalized form of transactions. These are programs that run on each node and modify the state. This design leverages extended Berkeley packet filter bytecode as fast and easy to analyze, and JIT bytecode as the smart contracts language. One of the main advantages is zero-cost foreign function interface. Intrinsics, or functions that are implemented on the platform directly, are callable by programs. Calling the intrinsic suspends the program and schedules and the intrinsic on a high-performance server. Intrinsics are batched together to execute in parallel on the GPU. I'm saying sentences that I never thought I would string together in my entire life. I never thought. I say intrinsics are batched together to execute in parallel to the GPU, but look at me now. In the above example, two different user programs call the same intrinsic. Each program is suspended until the batch execution of the intrinsics is complete. An example intrinsics is ECDSA verification. Batching these calls to execute on the GPU can increase throughput by thousands of times. This trampoline requires no native operating system thread context switches, since the BPF bytecode has a well-defined context for all the memory that it is using. Blah, blah, blah. And now into the references. We did it. We did it. We went through the Solana white paper. Thank you all. Somebody complimented my skin. Thank you. Then I think they left. But they may be back. Okay, so now let's talk about the Solana controversies. I feel like maybe I should lead with the controversies as opposed to getting into the white paper. But maybe I should do introduction, controversies, then white paper. Or maybe controversies. I should start with controversies because that's what you guys like, right? So maybe I do controversies, then the summary, and then the white paper. We'll see. I'm still figuring this out. This is episode 5, right? So, yeah, Solana controversies. Solana, while promising, has faced several controversies that have raised concerns about its decentralization, security, and overall viability as a blockchain platform. Here are some of the key controversies. Validator concentration. Critics argue that Solana's validator is set highly concentrated, with a small number of entities controlling a significant portion of the network's voting power. This raises questions about the network's decentralization and its resistance to censorship or attacks. Foundation influence. The Solana Foundation, a nonprofit organization, holds a significant amount of SOL tokens and has been accused of exerting undue influence over the network's development and governance. This has led to concerns about potential conflicts of interest and the concentration of power within a few entities. Network instability and outages. Frequent downtime. Solana has experienced several network outages and periods of instability in the past, leading to disruptions in transactions and services built on the platform. These issues have raised concerns about the network's reliability and its ability to handle large scale adoption. Underlying protocol issues. Some experts believe that Solana's underlying protocol design may be contributing to its instability. The network's reliance on proof of stake, POS consensus, and its unique turbine architecture have been cited as potential sources of vulnerabilities. SEC investigation. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission has been investigating Solana along with other cryptocurrencies to determine whether they should be classified as securities. If the SEC determines that SOL is a security, it could face significant regulatory hurdles and potential legal challenges. So let's see more about that. Okay, so we'll follow up on that when I finish reading. Other regulatory concerns. Solana may also face regulatory scrutiny in other jurisdictions, particularly as governments around the world grapple with how to regulate cryptocurrencies. That's true for everybody. Ecosystem vulnerabilities. So now this is the part that I remember. I remember this day. I know somebody who had a lot of Solana, and I don't know if they sold it during this. I hope they didn't sell it, but it was a very hectic time where people thought that Solana was going to die. DeFi hacks and exploits. Solana's decentralized finance DeFi ecosystem has been targeted by hackers and scammers, resulting in significant losses for users and investors. These incidents have raised questions about the security of Solana-based DeFi protocols and the overall maturity of the ecosystem. So I'm going to look at an article about that also. Smart contract vulnerabilities. Smart contracts built on Solana have also been found to contain vulnerabilities that could be exploited by malicious actors. These vulnerabilities pose risks to the security of decentralized applications, dApps, and the overall stability of the Solana ecosystem. That's another. Okay, so we got 3 follow-up articles. So let's get into the Solana drama. So first, SEC. What's this say? SEC still eyes Solana as a security. This was in July 2024. Oh shit. There's no reason to think the SEC has decided SOL is a non-security, said Jake Travinsky, Chief Legal Officer at Variant Fund, in a post on X. He pointed out that the SEC shift in its latest court filing, which no longer seeks a verdict on whether these tokens are securities. This tweak has led some to think that the SEC is softening its stance, but crypto insiders argue otherwise. Okay, so it sounds like the SEC initially included Solana in the Binance case. In the Binance case, we talked about being Bitcoin earlier. So the Binance case, you know, I don't know if it's directed to CZ going to jail, but remember the founder of Binance went to jail. Personally, from the outside looking in, I had always assumed that Binance would get in trouble because of their claims of anonymity, because the feds do not like people making private trades, right? So that's what I thought Binance would be getting in trouble for. But there's some stuff there. A lot of stuff say that it's about them promoting securities. So I got to look into that some more. In the broader context, the SEC still refers to these tokens as securities in other lawsuits, including one against Coinbase Coin. This mixed messaging keeps the crypto community on its toes. For now, Solana, BNB, and others remain under scrutiny. Okay. So, yeah, if the SEC decides it's a security, what does that mean? Let's see. What happens if the SEC thinks Solana is a security? If the SEC determines that Solana is a security, it could have significant implications for the cryptocurrency and its ecosystem. Increased regulatory oversight. This could lead to increased compliance costs for Solana and its ecosystem participants, potential legal challenges. The SEC can take enforcement against individuals or entities involved in the sale or distribution of Solana if it determines that they violated securities laws. And this is a really big deal because Solana is a platform in which other cryptocurrencies spring from. So it's not only being traded for other things like a Bitcoin or like a Litecoin, but there's actually cryptos that people have published through Solana. So if Solana goes down, that yeah, there's a whole vibrant ecosystem there. That's the fifth biggest in the world, right? So, impact on token holders, investors in Solana tokens could face uncertainty regarding the future of their holdings. If the SEC determines that Solana is a security, it could limit the ability of investors to freely trade or sell their tokens. So, this makes me think that it's interesting because I think one of the big selling points of cryptos are people framing them to be sort of like how securities are, right? But at the same time, the more it's like a security, the more likely it's going to get in trouble, right? Um, Ecosystem disruption, I kind of talked about that. Impact on innovation. Okay, so the SEC's decision could also have implications for innovation in the cryptocurrency space. If Solana is classified as a security, it could set a precedent for other cryptocurrencies and limit the ability of developers to experiment with the new ideas and technology. Okay, so what's next? So from CoinGeek, Solana's DeFi ecosystem was totally fake, and that's why identity matters. What the heck? Is that what the big crash was? When is this article from? 2 years ago. Several days back, a bombshell report by CoinDesk revealed that two brothers had used multiple pseudonymous accounts on a fake to fake an entire DeFi ecosystem on Solana. What happened? How did two brothers fake 7.5 billion of DeFi TVL? According to a written confession by one of the brothers behind the scheme, he and his brother spun up 11 fake developer accounts to make it look like organic development was occurring within the Solana DeFi ecosystem. In reality, all of the so-called dev accounts, complete with Twitter profiles that would interact and talk with one another, and the protocols themselves, were run by Ian and Dylan from Texas. The pair coded several different DeFi protocols, linking them together in such a way that every dollar deposited would be counted multiple times, causing the apparent total value locked within the ecosystem to swell dramatically. At its peak, the scheme represented about 75% of the TVL in the Solana DeFi ecosystem, close to 7.5 billion. In his confession, which he wrote but never published when one of the protocols was hacked for 52 million, Ian explained that he believed that Ethereum DeFi protocols were designed to count every dollar more than once. So he had the idea to build something similar on Solana. The Texan said that he believed that this scheme played no small part in the Sol's massive rise to 188 at its peak in 2021. Blah, blah, blah. So they're talking about how anonymity is bad. Okay, now they're talking about other hacks. So yeah, Solana got hacked for or scammed. I don't know. Okay, so then what is this? Security vulnerabilities exposed to Solana network. One of the best known public blockchains for smart contracts is Ethereum. However, Solana is also gaining popularity in this space. Compared to Ethereum, this blockchain is characterized by its stateless architecture, which makes it very fast, scalable, and cost effective. However, this technology also has its downsides. It opens up new specific attack possibilities on Solana, for which there are a few defense mechanisms so far. In fact, attacks on Solana smart contracts have already caused significant asset losses. For example, in the famous wormhole hack in February 2022, 320 million was lost. Researchers examined 6,049 smart contracts and found bugs in 52 programs. 14 bugs were classified as serious and could potentially be exploited by hackers. Okay, so it seems like Solana is promising or promised so many new things, but with new things come new risks. So yeah, so we talked about the Solana white paper. We talked about um, the controversies surrounding Solana, some legal stuff. Um, so yeah, I feel like this was a pretty good live. This is my fifth episode of Reggiecoin. So thank you for watching. Um, you can find me on Spotify. I'm a rapper. R39INALD. It's Reginald, but with a 39 instead of EG. I'm on Instagram under Reggiecoin, and you can find me on Twitter at Kanye. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.